Boom, and here we are. This is Matt's Chats 16 or 17. I've actually lost count, and you're probably still not watching, so you probably don't know. Anyway, I'm very lucky and honoured today. A few weeks ago, I was interviewing Els Bailey, and we were talking about stopping the car and listening to various people. Well, I'm actually going to speak to someone now who actually maybe went the other way. I actually put my foot to the pedal. I was driving on the road, and this track came on called Whiskey and Coke, and Jack and Coke. That was it, Jack and Coke. And it absolutely blew my mind. I just put my foot down the car. I carried on driving, and it said, Beth Blade. Beth Blade? Who's Beth Blade? Beth Blade and the Beautiful Disasters. I thought, well, I have to listen to a few more of this. This is a couple of years back now, and I just listened to it. I just thought, wow, what? I've got to see this girl. And then I got the chance to see her at Hard Rock Hell. And here I am, very privileged to speak to the one, the only Beth Blade McDonald. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm very flattered. You're very nice.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm working on it. It's all a front. The thing was, they asked me to do this. Rock Media UK asked me to do this. They just told me to go and pick people that I admire and love, and I've been really lucky to speak to Glenn Matlock of the Sex Pistols and you know, people I admire. I can't read them all off. If I forget somebody, they'll all kill me. But just heroes of mine and people that I really respect in the industry. And since that day when I was driving the car, and I nearly crashed the car at 120 miles an hour on the M4. You know that one, don't you?
Very much so.
Yeah. I just wanted to chat to you, and I know we've tried a few weeks to try and get this conversation going. Yeah. But here we are. So, Beth, without further ado, tell us about yourself. Where do you originally come from? Bristol?
No. Complete other end. So I am from, and I'm sat right now, I'm from Blackburn, Lancashire.
Oh.
And essentially I ended up moving down to Cardiff for university to study music. And that's where it all kicked off, really. But before that, you know, I've always been singing. My parents are massive rock fans, dragging me to concerts since I was a little girl. And gigged in a couple of bands, but they were more kind of like indie kind of stuff, which wasn't really my fare. But it was all that was available, so I learned how to do that and did all sorts of things. Did musicals, played acoustic gigs in cathedrals, sang on songs of praise.
Oh.
Which is very funny because I am an atheist. But and then I did a couple of years where I was just doing covers bands, and it got to the point where I was like, I need to do my own stuff. And then went to uni and was trying to find the right people, and then one day bumped into a couple of people in a rock bar called Fuel down in Cardiff, very good friends of ours, and the rest is history. A couple of members come and gone and all that kind of thing, but you know, as the way is with rock and roll, it can be.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, go on.
Like having a relationship with four other people. Mm. So yeah, I don't know how these polyamorous people do it, to be honest, because it's hard enough when it's just the band. And there's no.
And they just surround themselves with mirrors. The mirrors, they just look at it, just argue.
And so we we released our latest album July just gone, and it was very well received, and we're just out on the road and gigging and trying to get out there as much as possible, really.
You look as shattered as I do. You do, I tell you. I mean that in a nice way. You have to be careful what you say these days, don't you? You know, I always stumble on, does my bum look big in this? And what's the other one? How old do you think I am? I don't know.
I'm terrible for putting my foot in it. I do it all the time. Just like asking daft questions. I once asked the drummer from Papa Roach who he was at his own party.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Like that's an idiot. Good. You know.
Well, I got pulled up on the side.
All over.
I got pulled up on the weekend. I doing introduction. I do this thing I learned from doing. I DJ kids parties for years, and one of the things I used to do was, are there any boys in the room? Yeah. Are there any girls in the room? Yeah. Who's better, boys or girls? Yeah. Right, I'll get the snow machine out. And that was my way of controlling kids. So I brought it into the rock and roll thing with Ransom, and I've just realised what was going on. I thought, I know, I'll try something else. Are the boys here? Any girls here? Any non-binary? Deathly silence. A couple of people laughed, which wasn't great. And this person came up to me after and said, well, I wasn't very impressed with that. I said, well, no, you said, you've got to read my lyrics in all my songs. I'm all about diversity, bringing people together. And I said, to be honest with you, I said, you know, the LBGQT. I said, it's becoming more of an eye test for me now with my age. I said, I can't believe what's going on. And she laughed. I thought, thank God for that. So it broke the ice, and you know, she was cool.
Oh yeah, all you got to think about there is sometimes people sometimes think you taking the piss.
Yeah.
But really, you know, like me, I'm totally pro LGBTQ and all that kind of stuff.
Totally.
And as far as rock and roll goes, everybody is welcome at the rock and roll show, and anybody who has a problem with anybody being welcome at the rock and roll show can get in the bin, as far as I'm concerned.
That's what we did. I mean, exactly
you know,
that. And that's what I like about your lyrics as well, is that, you know, go fuck you. You know, if you don't like it, then that is what rock and roll is all about, and bringing people together.
In the 70s and the 60s, and when that was prevalent, you know, it was about just being who you were, no matter what. And I think a few people have seemed to have forgotten that over the years from that generation.
Yeah.
And for me, I just my philosophy in life is anybody can do whatever they want as long as they're not hurting anybody else.
I want to be, and you're surrounded by animals as well, so you obviously love animals as well. Well, we got cats, dogs.
There's a kitty just sat there, and the dog looking,
sitting by your hand.
Go back to bed.
Is that the tactic that if you're going to feed it at night, it thinks, oh, I better sit in front of the amp because you're bound to go to the amp at some point?
Yeah, pretty much.
You've chosen your animals well. Well, as I said, the first time I heard you, I heard on that the first. I think it was on the second album. Was it Show Your Teeth? I think that's where those two tracks came from.
Show Me Your Teeth. Yeah, so that it was a really interesting thing going from the. So the first album was an interesting one in that we did it in like 6 days, and I was still a bit naive at that point. I was still a little bit concerned about, well, what does everybody want to hear from us, kind of thing. And it's that, you know, in your face rock and roll all the time, all the way through. There's like maybe 1 or 2 ballads on there. And then with number 2, I wrote a happy album because I felt like I needed a happy album at the time. And it was very produced and very nuanced and lots of harmonies. And then for number 3, we went the complete opposite way, and it's recorded no double tracks. The only things that were done separately really were the vocals and the lead guitars, and it was done as close to live as possible.
No, I think that's the way forward. I think that's the one thing that was stopped to us during lockdown, is being able to play new songs with other people in the room rather than bringing them. And I think I had this conversation with Andy Burgess of Praying Mantis the other day. The same thing, and it's how destructive it is, because you need that unity. You need to bounce ideas off people, and the drum, the bass, and everything comes in a room together. It's something happens. It's something magical that people don't know that.
It's about the vibe and about recording the air in the room and the atmosphere in the room. And people, you know, as much as people do produce at home and they sit there on their laptops and they put out really quality music, for me, I'm really old school. I'm a vintage girl, and I think that you can hear on an album, I think you can hear the atmosphere of the time and the place and the people as they're bouncing off each other. So for our band, I'm mostly the person who does the songwriting, and the boys contribute every now and then. But without the way that they play, and without the licks that they throw out sometimes, or the ideas that they put in, or the groove that they put in, that music would not sound the same if it was different musicians. So, you know, songwriting is great, but it's the performance and the interaction of the people who are in the room that should really be captured at that time. And you listen to great records from the 60s, 70s, 80s, it's got air to breathe. It's not all like solid and in your face. It's not like millions and millions of layers. You listen to an album like Rumours, or any of Jimi Hendrix's stuff, or any of the David Bowie albums from the 70s, Journey, and then you get to the 80s and you get like Foreigner. You know, you can hear that every individual person has a personality through the instrument, and it's not produced out of the music, which is really important.
That is exactly what music is to me. I think I grew up with that 60s kind of training. It all changed for me when the punk thing came out. I've been through the glam ride and then done that, and the different reactions. And I do like to hear everyone in the band, and that's why I love being in a 4-piece. I love being in a 4-piece band for that reason, that I can hear the bass, I can hear the drums, I can hear and everyone's got their own thing going on, and it feels strong. It feels like a family, a personality that each one's got that's gelling together. Now, you shouldn't sell yourself short. I mean, you have a very distinctive voice. You have a great presence live. You're a great live. Anyone who hasn't seen Beth Blade live, go and see her. She is phenomenal. She just tears the place apart, and it's brilliant. And she's got this kind of voice. I remember once I saw Maria McKee with Lone Justice, and they came on, and that voice just went boom, and I went, whoa. And you've got that, and you got that with a guitar.
Thank you.
No,
when it comes to playing live, again, it's this thing. So for music, for me, it's for it to connect with me live and on a record. For me, it's about one of two things. It's either having fun and having the best time of your life, or using it as a tool to feel what you need to feel. And you know, when I come out on a stage, it doesn't matter if there's 2 people, 10 people, 200, 2,000, whatever. For me, it's always Wembley Arena. Always.
That's our motto. That's what we say for Ransom. We play the pubs every week with exactly that. We came up to Great Yarmouth on Thursday to do a half-an-hour set, 8-hour round trip. We just went in. I said, "I don't care how many people's in the room. It's Wembley Stadium," and that's the way you do it, and that comes across. And I see that in you. I see that drive in you. Now, I don't know how far we're going to get with this, but you know, it comes from a place. Your lyrics, everything you do, comes from a story which I wasn't aware of until a couple of weeks ago when I was researching. When we were first initially going to do this interview, I wanted to get you out on International Women's Day because I thought it was really, really important. I'm a great advocate, having a daughter myself, of empowerment, the way that females have been portrayed in rock over the years, but now having that now with so many strong performers, with, you know, it's a Cassidy Paris, you know, Loz Campbell, Wells Bay, all these people now coming to the front, yourself particularly. And I think it's great. I think it's great that it's there. It's changing people's perceptions. But you come from a very dark story that's happened to you, and in your own words, I'd like to tell you how much of it you would like to talk about and tell me right now, so that people can have an understanding of what happened to you and why it's so important that other people hear your story.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm an open book when it comes to this. So
yeah, sure.
Oh, good. So for me, really, it goes further back than that initial incident. So, I was in a relationship with another person, and that was a domestically violent relationship, and that was literally around the time of we were recording "Show Me Your Teeth," and at the time, I was not able. I didn't feel able to leave. Had a lot of self-esteem issues that led to me being in that position in the first place, and financially, stuff to do with the band. We worked together as well, and I felt unable to leave that situation for a really, really long time, until a couple of friends, you know, came in my life and kind of cottoned on to what was happening, because I had been hiding it for quite a while, from everybody, because I just felt very embarrassed and very ashamed that I had let something like that happen to myself. And that's one of the things why I speak out, is because people tend to think that if they are educated, or if they are smart, or if they have a loving family, that it'll never happen to them. But you know, these people who do these things, they don't care where you come from. If they find if they find a weakness, if they find an insecurity, they will play on it, and they will manipulate you, regardless of how clever or smart or rich you are. Nobody is safe from that kind of, you know, predatory person. And you know, the boys didn't know what were going on in the band, at the time, Sam and Luke. And eventually I got to the end of my tether with it, and I was like, I need to leave, or he needs to leave. And I felt really good about it. and I felt strong, and I felt like, right, so now that this is done, because the Show Me Your Teeth album came out during the middle of all that, and then we had released it through Pledge Music, and we lost, thousands and thousands of pounds. We made sure we fulfilled our fans' orders, but we lost all of the money that we were supposed to do everything with, and ended up in quite a significant amount of debt. So at the time, I was just an absolute mess, playing shows, working 90 hours a week, and the rest of the time fighting cat and dog, and with somebody who just wanted to harm me and didn't want me to, succeed. And so I got out of that situation, and then somebody from my past came into my life, and we had started dating, and which is now something that I'm educated about, love bombing, and all those kind of things, creating trauma bonds. And he was very aware of the things that I'd been through in the previous relationship. So because of the previous breakup, I had to move back home up to Blackburn, and that's where he lived. And as soon as I moved back up to be with him, he changed on the drop of a hat. Literally overnight, went from the most caring, romantic, loving boyfriend in the world to being possessive and controlling, and just an utter monster, really. And by that point, I was obviously very mentally unwell. And at that time, I thought, well, if this is happening to me again, then I must somehow be at fault. Whereas actually, it's just somebody who preyed on me, knowing that I'd been through those kind of things, and took the gamble that I would accept them easier because I'd been through it before. And when it started happening again, I just kind of gave up on myself completely, 100%. I was still doing gigs and things like that, and he was not happy when I would speak to promoters or other musicians if I didn't introduce him to them first. There was a festival called Amplified Festival.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And we played that day, and by that evening, he had beaten me so badly that the right hand side of my body was black and blue. He'd smashed a bottle over my head, and I had to leave the festival and left the rest of the band there. They didn't know where I was. They hadn't heard from me. And I just, made excuses and said I was ill and that kind of thing. And by that point, I was pretty much resigned to the fact that I was probably going to die. And then something quite amazing happened, which was we got voted on to the Kiss Cruise. And obviously, Kiss are my favourite band. Everybody knows that. I am a Kiss girl. And I was just like, that's a sign that's telling me that I need to stay. And he was not very pleased that I would be going on the Kiss Cruise without him. And I made it very clear that if there was one thing that he was not going to take from me, it was music. And that resulted in the incident that I did the article about.
But for anyone who doesn't understand, the article is online. I don't really want to put you through it again.
Oh no, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm cool talking about it. Just a trigger warning for anybody listening: if you have issues with domestic violence or coercive control, might be a good idea to stop listening now and tune in about 3 minutes time.
Okay, that's it. Go and put the kettle on and come back.
Yeah, and so there was an attack where I was kept in his house. My skull was fractured, my nose was broken, and several other things happened. And they are quite graphic, so I won't go into detail. But I managed to escape from the house naked. I had to flee, and got out of that situation. And he was arrested and put in prison, and for those out there who don't know the British justice system, it is very poor when it comes to domestic violence. He got an 11-year sentence with a third taken off because he pleaded guilty, and he only served 4 of the 8 remaining years, and he is now a free man. So it's been very interesting for me trying to adapt to knowing that he is out there free whilst I am still gigging. And the police can only do so much within the lines of the law. Obviously you have restraining orders and all these kind of things, but I could play a town where he is. I don't know where he is. You're not allowed to know those kind of things. And he could easily find me because where I am is listed publicly.
Well, a message goes out to all Beth's fans, all Beth's fans, wherever she's playing, you get her back. You look after her, okay? Everybody, keep an eye out for our Beth. We don't want anything like that to ever happen.
Everybody is so sweet, and I've
We
got
love you. That's why.
Brilliant team of people. The guys in the band, Mark, my partner, who works with us very closely, and we are very looked after. And there's been a lot of support and a lot of people who have just been absolutely wonderful. And for me, it got to the point where it was really important to talk about it because I saw that other people were going through it and they felt unable to do anything about it. And I was just like, you know what, I've got to talk about this because number one, people need to know that it happened, and 2, people need to know that they're not alone. So when I started writing the album, I made the decision that I wasn't going to self-censor anymore. I was going to write every deep, dark thought. I was going to touch every topic. And then obviously we had a lockdown, and people lost people through COVID, and they lost people to mental health. And it was a couple of years there, it's been about 4 years where everybody has just really gone through it, including myself and everybody I know. And I just thought, if I didn't write honestly and authentically, then that wouldn't be fair to the people listening. So when we decided to do that album, I was like, I want it to be recorded raw. I want it to be as close to live as possible. And I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty, and I'm not going to not talk about these things. So, Sacrifice on the album is about domestic violence. Hold Your Heart is about suicide, essentially. And not only from the perspective of losing somebody to suicide, but also loving people who have lost people through suicide and the helplessness of not being able to help. And there are some fun songs on there, and Tonight I'm With You is a celebration.
I like that, and Sinita. I like the first one.
Yeah, so Tonight I'm With You is literally about having a good time with your mates and the people that you love, because we weren't able to do that in lockdown. And Sin Eater is it's a Welsh myth. There were actual sin eaters in the 1800s, and I just thought, after reading a book by a lady called Amanda Palmer, she said, as artists, we are essentially sin eaters because we have people that we don't even know tell us their deepest, darkest secrets and confide and tell us what they've gone through. And we listen to that and we use it to create art and do something good and help other people who are going through the same things. So for me, I was like, well, if people do that for me and they trust me with their stories and the things that they've been through, then who am I to not trust them to tell them my reality?
That's great. I mean, that's the yardstick I have for people that I have close to me. I've been through a lot. I've got a book coming out in a couple of weeks, all about various things I've been through. Nothing quite as traumatic as you, but I've been through the mill a bit myself.
But you have to remember, and this is a thing that I will say to anybody and anybody listening, your pain is relative. And it's something that I did for years that I didn't understand. I stayed in a horrible situation because I kept telling myself that other people had it worse. And we really need to try not to do that, because it doesn't matter what somebody else's experience is. Your experience matters, and how you feel about it matters. And it doesn't matter if somebody else has had what you think is marginally worse or a worse time. Your pain is valid, and don't let anybody ever take that
You know,
away
that's
from you.
a really important message. I'm so glad that I spoke to you today. I've been, as you know, I've been after you for a couple of weeks now to have this conversation, because I think it's really important. I think you're a very brave person. You're a very soulful person, a very honest person. And I think people like you who go through things like that and are honest to themselves and the rest of the world, it makes the world a better place. It makes people out there realize that whatever they're going through, that, you know, they can get through it and they can use it for the greater good, which is what you're doing. I mean, you're tearing up
Yeah.
at the moment. I mean, I go on the number of comments I see all over social media and everyone, and it's fantastic. So to use the trauma, to use everything you've been through to produce what you do, it's 10 out of 10. I'm, you know, if I was it?
Okay.
People say I look like Garth out of Wayne's World. You know, I'm not worthy to you.
That is the true statement right now.
Yeah. And I was going to say that so the album, so if you don't know, I can't believe anyone. It's called Mythos, Confession, Tragedies, and Love. That's the third album. Now, Beth has been done quite a lot. She's been very modest about it. She's also done backing vocals for Thunder and had 2 top 40 albums. I think one even got to #1, I think, if I'm right. But
So they both went to #1 in the rock chart, and then the
yeah,
highest was #3 in the whole UK chart, which was
wow.
amazing. And you know, the guys I'm very lucky that the person who produces our albums, Nick Bryan, he also works with Thunder, and he gave me a call one day saying, can you do some backing vocals? And I'm like, today? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll come down. And I walked in and it was Thunder.
Well, you walk in the room and go, oh my God, keep it together.
I was totally cool on the outside, but in my head I'm going, oh my God, it's Thunder.
He
And
comes across very well, Danny. I'm sure he's
Danny
lovely
is
to.
lovely, Luke, they're all fabulous and
Yeah.
wonderfully talented. And it was really cool for me because Thunder were actually one of the first bands that I ever saw when I was about 8 years old, and they were playing on Scarborough Beach. And we saw them on holiday, and you know, I've always loved them, and Backstreet Symphony is one of those great records, legendary. And so you know, and they treated me so well. They were so kind, and we got to have a chat. And you know, Luke, I've sent him some music to listen to, and he's given me notes and things like that. And you know, obviously Danny has not been well as of recently after
No, I saw that.
an accident, and it makes me really happy to see that he's doing so well on his road to recovery, because you know, he is literally one of the greatest rock and roll voices this country has ever made, and it's a shame that
I agree.
He's underrated on a worldwide scale. And literally the other day, this is a tangent, but I read the book Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yes.
And it inspired a song, and I wrote a song, and it's a duet. And in my head, all I can think is that the person that I would hear sing it in my head is Danny Bowes.
I'm sure when he's watching, Danny, he'll do it. I'm sure he'd love to do it. Be an absolute honour to do it. That's brilliant. Well, there are, Danny. You know, there's the gauntlet is laid out. You've got a song to sing with Beth, and that's on there. So what's happening now? You've got a few more. You got a tour coming up, gigs.
Yeah, we've got lots of gigs. We've got no tour so far, but you know, you never know what'll happen on there. But we got lots of gigs coming up. We're in South Wales this weekend at the Patriot with Statement from Denmark and Blind River. Beautiful. And then in April, we're at the Waterloo Music Bar on Bank Holiday Monday playing with Vigil of War from Los Angeles. And then I'm doing a couple of acoustic supports for Joel Hulkstra from Whitesnake, so that's going to be really fun. We're playing on April Fool's Day up in Scotland at the Vault Arts Centre. So yeah, we get around a bit, and then we've got Call of the Wild, we've got Nozfest, we've got New Wave of Classic Rock Fest. We've got a couple of things that aren't announced yet. We're playing a tribute to Steve Grimmett of Grim Reaper coming up.
Oh, brilliant! Well, listen, if
stuff.
I'm Ransom's not playing, I'll come and see you somewhere, or we might be on a festival somewhere sooner or later. I'm sure we
And
are.
hopefully we can be on a gig at the same time at some point.
Yeah. He's in Call of the Wild or something. We'll do it. We'll be there.
Yes,
Listen,
we
Beth,
shall.
it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for
Oh,
taking the time to come on Match Chats and
oh,
telling us your
thank
story.
you. Without people like yourselves, wanting to talk to up and coming musicians, we wouldn't have a platform. So we appreciate it just as much. And
You're
thank
more
you.
than up and coming. You're an absolute superstar, and I love you to bits. And I'll see you the next one. And I'm going to go home in a minute. I'm going to stick on the radio. I'm going to crank up Jack and Coke full whack. All right,
Yes.
just for you.
Yay! But I don't know if you got work tomorrow. Maybe not drink some Jack and Coke.
I
Maybe just do
don't.
it
I've been
in your
teetotal
mind.
for 3 weeks. I've never drink for 3
Oh,
weeks. Yeah,
that's good.
yeah. For me, it's
Well done,
incredible,
you.
actually.
Yeah, we had a busy weekend. We watching Ville Valo from him do his solo dates. So bit of a heavy weekend, and now I'm quite happy with my Fanta lemon.
Fans with lemon and the cats. All right, listen. You have a
Yeah,
lovely rest of your evening, Beth. Speak soon,
you
okay?
too.
I'll give you a
Yes,
shout when this
take
comes
care.
out. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.